They were like, dude, you want to be a product manager? I was like, any job is fine. Just, just take me with the Microsoft offer letter, I'm happy. I went there and all my peers are like 6, 7 years older than me, and I went to a first meeting where everyone was like 40 plus and I'm like this 21-year-old sitting there and I'm supposed to present something and I'm like, my legs are shaking. Oh yeah, you can never fight a competition for where they are at today. You always have to look ahead for where they're going and kind of strive towards that. And basically, the context here is like, hey, should we just build a Slack clone or should we actually build something much more bigger, much more profound and set a vision for something that we actually believe in rather than actually worrying about the fire that's in our backyard right now.
I want some energy from the house because I'm going to call Ewin Davis on the stage, who has worked with companies like Microsoft and Atlassian as a product manager, and he's going to decode how he did that in his life. So, welcome Ewin. Was Ewin prepared to be an engineer, or was it some sort of a pressure situation that you have had being in Bangalore? Learning that you might have to go the same path as others have?
I graduated out of school in 2007, and honestly, I don't know how many of you are in that age group, but I don't think we had a lot of choice. So if you're reasonably okay at studies, go like engineering or doctor, it was like the two main stars in front of you. I didn't want to do either actually, so I wanted to actually play professional basketball. But one day my dad called me and he was like, hey, we need to have a talk. And he was like, I don't think you can make a career in basketball. I think anyone who's good at sports probably had that conversation with their parents.
What year are we talking about?
This was 2006 or 5 or something.
Pretty much every parent would have said the same thing.
And so I was left with no choice. I didn't want to do biology, no doctor, so engineering was kind of the option remaining, which just drew me in, I guess.
So when did this engineering journey start for you? At what point you thought that now it's time to think seriously about your engineering life, engineering career, and go ahead and do that?
Yeah, so seriously, I don't think I ever considered it, but it was more, again, a very basketball-driven conversation, because I was like, okay, if I'm not going to become a professional basketball player, let me choose a college which has a good basketball team. And that's how it started, gave my entrance exams and so on and so forth. And I still remember when I was filling out my college preferences after I wrote my IIEE and I got a pretty decent rank. And I was like, NIT Karnataka had a good basketball team. So it was like computer science, IT, mechanical, civil. I think I went till chemical before I chose another college because I was like, I don't care which branch, any engineering is fine as long as I get that college. And it just happened. I got computer science, which was great. But yeah, I think out of all the fields, I was interested in computer science just because I logically resonated quite a bit with it. It was a lot more logical than a lot of the other streams. But I don't think I would have been unhappy if I got mechanical or civil or something like that. So
that's what I was going to ask you, that suppose it was mechanical. Do you think the life would have been very different?
I don't know. I feel engineering is, my personal take on engineering is that the fundamentals of it is very similar. Like you take something, you break it down, you figure out how it works, and then you kind of make something out of it. Now, whether it's in code, which you write on a computer, or whether it's in a machine, or whether it's a building, it's kind of the same first principles, I would say. And I think that's what excites me about engineering more than the specifics of it. And especially as a product manager where I did not get to write a lot of code, I just had to figure out how things work or how I should kind of think about how things should work. So I think it's still back to the first principles. So I've asked this question myself, like, hey, what if I didn't get computer science? I think it would have been okay.
Right, and once you go in there, you see that the kind of life that you have at NIT now, now you get to play basketball as well, right? So was it like a focus shift that was happening there, or you were sort of studying as well and trying to manage basketball and sort of dribbling between the two, and thought that, either or mein to career bani jayega.
So it's ironic that you asked this question because throughout college, I prioritized basketball because that's all I cared about. But in hindsight, that's the best lesson that I got in product management. So I'll connect the dots. It kind of sounds very disconnected right now, but so I played. Pretty much played every day, morning 2 hours, evening 3 hours. And studies happened basically 1 week before exams, like many of you guys probably already know. So but it was enough. Like I wasn't too worried about acing exams or anything of that sort. I was like, okay, I'll get enough to pass and I'll get a decent job at the end of it. So I think I just wanted to have fun in college. So I don't know, today the world is very different from what it was back then. Like my standard was my cousin brother got, I think, 1 lakh per year. And I was like, hey, if I double that, I'll be very happy. So when I went to college and they're like, hey, the minimum salary you get is 4 lakhs. I'm like, whoa, that's awesome, because that's like twice as I can imagine. So, it's all expectation matching. Like, I think if you start with, oh, I want to maybe be a billionaire in the first year after college, then I guess it's not going to work. But mine, it was like, yeah, I think I'll manage. And I just kind of focused on having fun. I'm not one of those guys who knew exactly what I wanted in life. I actually wanted to just have fun, and that's what I did.
Around this time that you actually got through to an internship, right? If I'm not wrong, and that internship was in US that you went to. What all happened from there?
Yeah, the story here goes like, so everyone in college is, okay, summer's coming up. So for me, summer vacation is like a vacation, right? So you go home.
It's not about working on getting to, worked up about getting work.
Vacation is like going back to my hometown in Kerala, swimming in the river and chilling, eating good food. But then you meet high achievers and then they go like, hey, so which internship are you doing? And I'm like, what's an internship? And this is how I got introduced to the concept of internship. And I actually had a really good friend who's Rohit Bezivada. He's like super motivated, knows exactly where he wants to be 3 years from now, which job, which profession. So he started applying to a bunch of universities in the US, and he just cold emailed a bunch of professors saying, hey, this is what I want to do. I'd love to work under you and stuff like that. So one day he convinced me I should do the same. And around that time, I'd actually started getting interested in machine learning and reinforcement learning in particular. So I did like a few projects, and because I was interested in chess, and I was like, hey, if I can automate chess using AI, that would be pretty cool. So I did that, and that got me excited. So that led me to research a bunch of professors in the US, Australia, Europe, and just cold emailed, literally, like find their email from some website, and I'm like, hey, I'm this student in India who is super keen on doing this.
A lot of times we don't do that, actually. We think that they're so big that we can't reach out to them, and a cold email.
There's that ad, right, in India, like, पूछने में क्या जाता है? Like, I think that's my philosophy pretty much. पूछने में क्या, like, I didn't lose anything by sending an email, and they probably didn't lose anything by reading my email. So I was like, why not?
You don't get charged for it, so
yeah, and fine. It worked. So I mean, it sounds silly, but it worked. And actually, I had 2 professors who reached back to me, and they were like, yeah, totally, we would love to have you and come join our university. And I was like, the one was in Australia, and another one was in US in Rutgers. And again, this is like a hard conversation to have with your parents, right? Because I don't know how to go and ask them, hey, I need like 1 lakh to go to the US and just spend my summer there.
So it was not funded, you had to put in money to do
like
the
I had to pay
also.
the travel, the ticket costs and the accommodation and stuff. So again, this is me trying to figure out how can I optimize the heck out of this and not have to spend a bomb for this. And plus, these are not like if you do an internship at, say, Cisco, I've got an internship at Cisco as well. At least you get paid for it, and then you can also get a job at the end so you can justify this. This was like going to my parents and asking for like a blank check. I'm like, I have no idea what's going to come out of this, and this is the first time I'm stepping out of the country. But they agreed, and I mean, I think it was not like this, what they show in the TV. Yeah? You go to the US, you party, you have fun.
You go for NBA matches.
No, none of that.
None of that happens.
None of that. So this was pretty much me taking a bus, go to college. They gave me an office, which was quite kind of them to do, and sitting and working. But working with a lot of passion, and like I loved what I was doing. And I think one difference I found was this was my first exposure to an academic university outside of India. And I think one difference I found was you kind of did things on your own, and very little was told to you on what you're supposed to do. So it sounds very intimidating at first, especially because all your life you've been told, oh, study this textbook, this chapter, and go spit out this exam and this answer here, and you get marks. So this was very unique because I was like, whoa, you're not telling me anything, and I need to figure this out by myself. And I think that's when I picked up one of the best lessons of my life, which is, I think that's the best thing you can do. If you can learn something on your own and have that confidence that you can learn anything on your own, then the world becomes your playground pretty much, right? You can pick and choose what you want to do. This gave me a lot of confidence because up until then I was not very academic focused, but suddenly I was like, wait a second, whatever I put my mind to, I can actually go figure out a solution for. And that confidence kind of changed the entire trajectory of, I guess, how I wanted to do things professionally going forward.
From there, with this confidence that you gathered, you came back to India, and now it was time for you to, hustle for that job that you get. And, it's a thing in India that people get placements, and you have to be part of the placements. What was that like for you? Was that like a different kind of a ball game that you were facing that time?
Yeah, we had to do placements, and I didn't want a job. I wanted to actually pursue masters under the same professor because I really loved what I did. So I applied for my GRE and stuff. And then placement started. The first company came. I thought, okay, how hard can it be? I went and sat for it. It was NetApp, I think. And I failed the first round, like the written exam, yeah? And I was like, oh my God, like this is going to be so hard. Like, I mean, you get what I'm trying to say? Like, when you're like, oh, you're smooth sailing, and suddenly you hit this roadblock and you go, like, it wakes you up. And then I was like, okay, I have to study for this. So there was like about a week before Adobe, D. Shaw, and Microsoft were coming. Now, these were outside my league, yeah? Like, these are like the big, short companies which...
That you never thought that you'll step foot in.
Forget about me, not my family, not my friends, no, nobody else. No one in the world probably thought I would even have a chance at these.
If it was the cousin, then it would have happened.
Yes. But in any case, I actually studied, like, because now there's with that confidence that, hey, actually, if I know what I need to do, I can figure out. So Google, books, I was just like jumping in, and I was enjoying the process actually. And surprisingly, I actually made it to the last round of all three, and it was a shock. Like my whole wing was
all
like,
three. So we are talking about Adobe,
yeah, D. Shaw and Microsoft. I did not
Microsoft.
get Adobe and D. Shaw. Like I think I was the only one left out from the last round. But the way I see it, it was because I was supposed to get Microsoft. So it's good.
That time you might not have the clarity,
Yeah.
but now if you look back, what exactly happened that worked in your favor?
So I think it was that same mad confidence that, I just demonstrated that confidence. So I remember the interviews were like, so it was an engineering hiring event. So I was being hired, like the interviews were for a SDE, like a software development engineer or a test engineer. And I did reasonably well. I mean, I thought I didn't do well at all. And I was at this point where I was just exhausted because I was like so many interviews and stuff. I'm like, okay, let's get this over with. But then there was this one round with the actual head of Bangalore, the Hyderabad office. And he was like, hey, so he saw like, I was the head boy of my school. So he's like, hey, have you given the product management interview? And I'm like, no, I don't even know what that is. And then he's like, okay, are you interested? And I'm like, yeah, I'm interested in any job that you can give me. So I was like, not very picky about the role. And then he asked me a question. And I still remember it was like, back in the day, this was 2010, I think, yeah? And how would you improve video search on Bing? Now, this question just lit me up because one, it was very open-ended. Two, there were no structures, no rules. So he asked me this question and I was just like, so this was 10 p.m. in the night, yeah? And it just woke me up because I was able to just go all in and I'm telling him about how videos are and how you can, it's pretty much the stuff that's happening now. I was able to like explain back then, but not because I knew it. It was just like, I could say anything and it was fine. And I had that confidence that I can just, and this energy is what he saw. And he was like, okay, let's do a product management interview loop. I was like, great, one more interview. So next morning I came in, and the next question that they asked me was, if you were to design a refrigerator for the future, like let's say it's 2025, and you had to design a refrigerator that Microsoft would want to build, how would you build it? Again, what a great question, yeah? Because I'm thinking about all the times I've used a refrigerator at home, and I did not like doing something, or I did not like walking, so I created this crazy refrigerator that was like, it knew smart refrigerators of today, back in the day, where it knew what was in it and it could order stuff for you and stuff like that. And this exercise was, I don't know, very liberating, because I was like, it's so open-ended, creative. Who thought engineering was creative? Yeah, I didn't. I thought it was like, the non-creatives did engineering, but suddenly I was like, oh, I can also be creative. And dude, you want to be a product manager? I was like, any job is fine. Just take me with the Microsoft offer letter, I'm happy.
Okay, so we move to your journey that starts with Microsoft now. Yeah, relatively young guy now has a job as a product manager. So someone of someone who has a background like you, right out of engineering college, what sort of a job that person gets in a company like Microsoft?
I think before getting into that, like when they actually offered me the job, this guy called me and he's like, hey, so we can give you an engineering role, or we have this product manager role. Product manager role is not given to freshers from college, but we think you can do, you don't have all the qualities, but you have some, and we want to take a chance on you. And I thought about it, and he asked me like, would you want to do it? And I was like, I love being the underdog. There's this saying that the underdogs are like always the least favorable, and I felt like I was the underdog because basketball taught me that. This is why I told you, like, I'll connect this back to how basketball taught me one of the biggest lessons of product management, because when you play ball, when you play any team sport for that matter of fact, like, you're always looking around to learn from the best, because that's what sports teaches you. Like, you can't be the best all the time, and you gotta like look around, see, oh, that guy's better than me, this guy's better than me, and something else, and you start to pick up qualities from them. And I told him exactly these words. I was like, see, I don't even know what product management is. I won't lie to you, but I think what I know is you put me in a situation, I'll figure it out. And it might not be as fast as you want it to be, might not be as fast as I want it to be, but I'm 100% committed to figuring it out. You can also say I wanted the job real bad, so it's something up, but I genuinely believe it. Like, I think, and going into the company, now there's a word for it called imposter syndrome. I don't know how many of you know what that means. I did not know this word until 3 years ago. It's basically like when you think you've been fooling people and getting jobs and opportunities, and suddenly you get up, you're on the stage right now with the spotlight on you, and you go like, shit, how did I get here? So it was not exactly that, but it was kind of like, what the hell was I thinking taking this job? Like, because I went there and all my peers are like 6-7 years older than me, and I went to a first meeting where everyone was like 40 plus, and I'm like this 21-year-old sitting there, and I'm supposed to present something, and I'm like, my legs are shaking. Oh yeah, and this happened. I was in a conference room. I got up to speak, and my legs are shaking. I'm like, shit, like, I don't want anyone to see this. But I did my talk, and I mean, I was scared, but at the same time, when you're the underdog, you have nothing to lose. So you just go all in, and like, there was no expectation. So today there are a lot of books on product management. That time there was zero. I mean, I guess there was one written by someone at Microsoft. So, but the beauty of this was not knowing what the role was actually my blessing, because I was like, I can do anything. And I was working with the engineers, I was working with the testers, I was working with the product managers, I was working with designers, and I'm like, just hungry, trying to figure out, okay, how do I find my way out of this? And I think it's everything is like this, yeah? You put in X amount of energy, you get back. And people loved it, I loved it, and it was a lot of hours, not because I actually liked to work a lot, because I just thought that was a norm. Like, you go in and everyone's like, oh, you work from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I mean, I didn't work the whole time. We played TT and all. My wife, who was sitting in the audience, she joined with me, so she was a partner.
So did you meet her
in
there at Microsoft? Oh,
That's
lovely.
Right, that's right.
Superb.
So we had fun, but I did put in a lot of hours earlier on and trying to get that confidence that, hey, I can do this. And one thing I did, especially for anyone who's new into their roles, like, I always looked up to people who are better than me. Not not to feel smaller, but I'm like, whoa, like I don't have, like he might have put in 4 years to become that good. I can just look at him and become that good in 1 month, like just by observing, right? So I figured this out that I can observe others and steal their skills. I mean, and I don't think there's anything bad with that. Before the world of the internet, you had to be in a college like an IIT or an IIM to get exposed to people who actually were good at their field. But now, one TED Talk search or one search on the internet and you get the best MIT professors, the best Harvard professors, the TED Talks. Like the amount of work that goes in before they come in and deliver the TED Talk, you absorb it in 30 minutes. And this is why I feel like your college degree is inconsequential anymore. It's pretty much way better on the internet. You just have to figure out how to absorb that information in the most kind of practical and easy way. And then suddenly you just have the whole internet by your side. Like,
Superb. Okay, so, while you were working there, while you met your now wife, then colleague, and life was going great, and then you got a chance to fly back to US again. When did that happen? And what was the project that you were taking up at that time?
so I'll connect this back later on in the story as well. I was the guy who would never leave India, right? So I was like family first, and I want to be with my friends and family. Like, who goes to the US? Why would somebody go to the US? And I used to fight with my college friends for this. This was, again, I think the pay was better, but that was one reason, not the main reason, I would say. I think it was mostly I just wanted to experience working outside of India. And because I just didn't know of another way of working. And the biggest learning I took away was, here I was working from, say, 9 or 10 to 9 in the night, with like breaks in between. And there when I went and I was like, people were doing much better than me by working, say, 9 to 5 or 9 to 4. And they were being as productive as me or probably more. So this made me think like, shit, there's a better way of doing this. Like, I don't have to work so many hours and I can still actually create a much bigger impact by working lesser hours. So it took a lot of time, like, someone from an Indian background going there, like, your hard work is your strength, yeah? Like, efficiency, you're not rewarded for. How many hours you put in is what you're rewarded for. So for me to change that mindset to become like, no, actually, it's the quality of hours, not the quantity of hours, was, I would say, the biggest learning. And the second thing was balance in work. So everyone will be like, oh, the more hours you put, the better you get. But I figured it's actually the inverse. The less hours you put into work and more hours you do things outside of work, the better the work gets and the better the stuff outside work gets. Because you see around, people are skiing on the weekends, kayaking, doing all this outdoor stuff. And I was like, and they're still doing really well at work. So work's not getting hurt at all. So it's possible. It's just no one taught me this. You decide how many hours you want to work and optimize the heck out of it. And the rest of the time, don't work. And do something else, because that's going to recursively improve the quality of work the next day. And this is kind of like a cycle that still continues in my life. Like, if you ask me, I'm the guy who's working the least amount and making the most of it. So,
Superb. Okay, so in 2014, you were working on something that we got to know pretty late in our lives, maybe by 2020, and that was Microsoft Teams. What was that version that you were working on at that point in time, and who were the sort of people that you were working with?
So I was fortunate enough to be appointed as the chief of staff. So there's a role called chief of staff to a VP in Microsoft. I don't even know if there's a definition to that role. Like, it's like you're
following him.
You're following him and whatever he needs. So you're like a glorified personal assistant. But you can look at it that way. I looked at it as, oh my God, I got to spend time with this smart man and absorb his energy as much as possible. A lot of my storytelling, presentation skills, I credit it back to him. And so in the process, we were working on MSN back then, and then he started a small team to figure out the future of work. So he's somebody who started Outlook back in the day for Microsoft, which is profoundly successful. And he wanted to get back into the productivity space, so he took a few people, like about 30 people, and he was trying to figure out what the next wave of Office is going to look like. And Microsoft was very successful with Office, but Office 365 was about new back then, and no one really bought it for its value. Like, it was just a handbag collection of apps, and everyone predominantly used Outlook, maybe Word, Excel, but there wasn't really a face of Office 365. So he had this great vision of, like, how about we create a product that was the face of Office 365 that actually brought all of this together into a single product, into a single user experience fabric. Then the products can fade away to the background, and this one product can be like, the face of Office, basically. Now, Slack was coming up, and there was a massive pressure on the company to kind of figure out what the answer for Slack is. And this is where I learned another professional lesson from this man, which is like, you can never fight a competition for where they are at today. You always have to look ahead for where they're going and kind of strive towards that. And basically, the context here is like, hey, should we just build a Slack clone, or should we actually build something much more bigger, much more profound, and set a vision for something that we actually believe in, rather than actually worrying about the fire that's in our backyard right now?
So when these discussions happen, do you guys discuss very openly that, this is something that has come up, Zoom is doing it, so maybe just take a few things from Zoom and then build something of that sort?
No.
Does that ever happen?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say never happen, but that's not the essence of the conversation. The essence of the conversation is, what's the customer problem and how have others solved it? Now, because then it's a broader conversation. If you just basically go like, oh, they've done this, we'll do this, that's a closed conversation because you're already kind of closed down your options. But if you say like, hey, this is the customer problem, this is how they've solved it, these are the pros and cons, okay, how can we solve that customer problem? And the solution might be similar to that. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but you got to start with a broader, like, look with a lot of wider horizon and then scope it down to a possible solution. I've always described product manager as a CEO of, like, an analogy is a CEO, but probably not as broad in the responsibility set, but more specific to the product perspective. And I'll explain why. Because the beauty of this work is you're collecting information, and this is where human brain, I think, is spectacularly amazing at. Because you can synthesize information and create insights much better than anything and anyone out there. And this is not specific to product management at all. Like, if you take an engineering role, it's the same thing. Like,